tonight. Young girls swarmed another girl here in a violent attack, and now they've been charged. And a former political party leader faces yet another charge of impersonating a law enforcement officer. Plus, he was labeled a freak show giant. Now a documentarian looks to paint an empathetic portrait of a mistreated relative.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It's Wednesday, August 9th. CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Hello, I'm Natasha Lipney. Thank you for joining us. Regina police have charged two girls. One is just 12 years old for an assault and robbery that happened near the Queen City exhibition grounds. Another girl involved is too young to face criminal charges. The attack was caught on video and a warning. It may be disturbing to some viewers. Laura.
A sudden attack, a flurry of hits, punches, and kicks, and it all involved young girls. Police say a 16-year-old girl was assaulted outside a business on the edge of the Queen City exhibition grounds last week. Police say the assault took place after 11 that evening. A group of girls were walking past the McDonald's near Leuven Drive. That's when they were confronted by another group of girls who began chasing them. Unlike her friends, the 16-year-old did not get away. Four girls ganged up on her and began beating her even after she was on the ground. All of this was recorded on video. Over the last week, the footage has been circulated widely on social media. In addition to the fight, Regina police say the assailants stole the teen's phone and ID before fleeing the scene. Officers located and arrested three girls afterwards. Two of the girls, aged 12 and 13, are now charged with robbery. The component of assault is included in the robbery charge. One of the girls involved in the assault was 11 years old. Police say she cannot be charged because she's under the age of 12. All three girls cannot be named because they are underage. The two girls that are charged are scheduled to appear in court September 19th. Laura Sharpletti, CBC News, Regina.
A former far-right federal party leader is now facing a new criminal charge in Saskatoon. The latest allegation against Travis Patron dates back to mid-July, and it also involves claims he impersonated a law enforcement officer. Dan Zakreski brings us this story.
Travis Patron is going to get his day in court, but not today. He was supposed to have a bail hearing this morning. Instead, he appeared by phone and found out that he's facing a new criminal charge. Police say that Patron harassed a man and his girlfriend at this downtown mall. The man he approached was an off-duty RCMP officer. 10 days later, it's alleged that he approached a woman here at the university. The campus put out an alert. And then it's alleged Patron did the same to another woman and her young daughter downtown. In both cases, the women say he claimed to be in law enforcement. The women were alarmed enough to call police. Now, Patron faces 3 charges of impersonating a law enforcement officer.
They infiltrate the
They're just
media.
Patron's latest run-ins with the law. Last summer, he was convicted of assaulting 2 women in Regina. Then, last October, he was convicted of promoting hatred against Jews. Patron founded the now-defunct Canadian Nationalist Party, which promoted anti-immigrant and anti-LGBTQ views. Patron is refusing help from legal aid and says he'll represent himself. He describes his most recent arrest as an arbitrary detainment, and he says that he doesn't recognize the jurisdiction of the court. Dan Zakreski, CBC News, Saskatoon.
We're just over 24 hours away from finding out who will represent 3 Saskatchewan ridings in the legislature. Tomorrow is decision day for 3 by-elections: Lumsden Morse, Regina Coronation Park, and Regina Walsh Acres. All of these ridings were previously represented by Saskatchewan Party members. Nearly 7,400 voters have already cast their ballots over 5 days of advance polling. Tomorrow, polls will open from 9 in the morning to 8 at night. You can tune in to our 11 o'clock show tomorrow for the results. And the NDP used their last day of campaigning to call out the government's record on food security. The party says new numbers from the Regina Food Bank reveal a troubling increase in demand. The food bank's annual report shows a 42% increase in usage last year. More than 130,000 people use the food bank. 2 in 5 were children.
The people aren't using the food bank because, they don't want to bother to go get groceries, or because they want to, buy a fancy RV or go on a hot weather vacation. They're using the food bank because if they don't, they can't pay their bills.
Really, the folks that access the food bank are kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of what the total population is, so that we're able to serve as many people as we can. But we know there's a whole bunch of stuff laying below sort of the waterline, and probably a bigger portion of the population that are still food insecure, but just not accessing our services.
In an emailed response, Minister of Finance Donna Harpower said the government offers strong affordability supports for all residents through a number of initiatives. The World Health Organization has classified a new COVID strain as a variant of interest. It's been named EG5 or Eris. It figures prominently in data that indicates a new wave of COVID infections could be coming our way this fall. The CBC's Lauren Pelly has this report.
We're only halfway through the summer, but scientists are already seeing signs of a fall COVID wave.
Here in the United States, we are seeing a slight increase both in terms of wastewater concentration levels, hospital admissions.
The latest Ontario data also shows a rise in positive tests since early July, with nearly 7% coming back positive by the end of the month. That uptick comes as this virus keeps evolving to sneak past our highly trained immune systems.
Variants are constantly changing. This is what the virus does to stay in business. It mutates and tries to find new customers.
New Canada-wide data provided to CBC News suggests an Omicron subvariant called EG.5 now makes up more than a third of all recent infections, mirroring the same trend south of the border.
Over the last year, we've been dealing with the Omicron family, so it's not a new variant of concern. It's certainly a new subvariant that we're keeping a close eye on.
The good news is vaccine manufacturers are finalizing updated booster shots for the fall COVID season, and they should cover this subvariant.
I do think that there is enough data showing that variant-specific boosters do have a pretty broad effect.
For most people, that protection should keep you out of hospital, though it won't always keep you from getting reinfected.
Definitely monitor your symptoms closely.
This pharmacist says if you're high risk, it's worth asking about Paxlovid, while others can usually manage symptoms with over-the-counter medications.
If it's something that's more like a dry cough, you can take a dry cough medication. If more congestion is your symptom, there are medications to treat the symptoms rather than treating the actual condition. And that's kind of the same thing with flu or a lot of other viruses.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
It's a short week for the Saskatchewan Roughriders as they prepare for Friday night's game in Montreal. The Green and White are looking for back-to-back wins after a 26-24 victory over the Ottawa Red Blacks. The offense was a highlight of Sunday's matchup. Mason Fine won his first game as starting quarterback. He had a lot of time to pass and also got great play from his receivers. Their performance made veteran receiver Darrell Walker expendable. The club released him today.
We just didn't have a spot for him, unfortunately. We feel like we've got good young receivers in-house, and it was a tough decision, releasing a veteran player that's a good guy, through and through, and was really a good player for us. But we have only so many spots, and we just didn't have a spot.
The Riders just have one full practice before heading to Montreal, where they will face former Rider Cody Fajardo and the Alouettes. The Baseball Canada Cup got off to a soggy start today. Well, in fact, most games didn't start at all. Saskatchewan was up against Nova Scotia after 4 innings before their opening game was suspended due to the rain. Regina is hosting the best players under 17 from across the country. Last year, Saskatchewan took home bronze. Our weather specialist joins us after the break to let us know when the rain will stop and let those games resume. For Taylor Swift fans, convincing the superstar to perform in Canada may have been the easy part. Tickets went on sale today, but a lot of people still haven't gotten a chance to buy one. The CBC's Anis Hadari reports.
It's been a cruel summer for Taylor Swift fans trying to get tickets to some of her Toronto shows today. The popular recording artist shows caused Ticketmaster to crash last year, but the website said, "Don't blame me this time around," and tried to shake it off when it comes to high demand using a program called Verified Fan. People had to pre-register just for the chance to buy tickets, and that chance wasn't guaranteed.
So I know the drill of you have to get multiple accounts going with different numbers. So I obviously asked all my friends, all my family, just to sign up for the pre-sales and different dates, since there are 6 tour dates. But yeah, all of us got waitlisted. So there's still a little bit of hope, but obviously really sad that I don't know anyone who's gotten a code.
So a code didn't guarantee fans a ticket. It gave them the chance to wait in a virtual line to maybe get a ticket. It also staggered access to the system to prevent a website crash like last year. And while many were disappointed today, Ticketmaster has said its system helps get what it calls real fans priority access to great tickets because robots or computers can't wait in line. But experts say it may not go far enough, and there's no way to assess that.
There are other problems, even the way Verified Fan is implemented now, because we don't know how many tickets are actually sold out of the 250,000 tickets in Rogers Arena. We don't know how many are actually sold to the fans through Verified Fan.
Without knowing the total number of tickets that were available, it's hard to know exactly how many were sold to fans versus being immediately resold. But that resale market isn't exactly a blank space, with tickets showing up on sites like StubHub anywhere from $2,500 to $12,000 each within hours. Anis Hadari, CBC News, Calgary.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. Employee pricing is on now.
Weather specialist Ethan Williams joins us now for what I assume is a sold-out forecast. What do you have for us, Ethan?
Stadiums full of people cheering. We finally have the rain, Natasha. It is here, it has happened, and it is glorious. And there is more of it on the way as well. Don't need a ticket to see the rain this time around. Showers moving through southeastern Saskatchewan this afternoon in advance of this system starting to move in. Rain has really cooled the air through this part of the province, including in Regina, where we saw those showers earlier today. We hit 14 in the Queen City. We were supposed to be around 22 this afternoon, so well below that. And yes, there is more to come in the form of this low-pressure system churning away in Alberta right now, creating some severe weather in the Rocky Mountain foothills. That rain going to be moving our direction, beginning through the overnight hours tonight. Around midnight is likely when we're going to see the first bands of rain through portions of west central and northwestern Saskatchewan. The southwest, you badly need it, but I think you're going to be avoided once again, unfortunately, for the most part from this system. By the commute tomorrow, as you're waking up tomorrow morning, that rain will have shifted eastward through to the Regina area and portions of the southeast, extending all the way basically along the tree line into northern Saskatchewan. Could even produce a few thunderstorms in the southeast tomorrow afternoon, and then that will continue in the north through tomorrow afternoon and evening. We should actually get some clearing, or at least the rain will end in southern and central Saskatchewan by the later afternoon hours, kind of into the early evening. Still pockets of rain heading into Friday for the north. Now, in terms of those rainfall totals, highest amounts, again, kind of Regina northward through the northern grain belt, probably a good 15 to 25 millimeters. About 5 millimeters at the most in southwestern portions of the province. Likely the highest amount of rain going to be falling in western sections of the Churchill region, even as far south as Meadow Lake. We could pick up upwards of around 25, maybe even 30 millimeters. And then Friday, as that system moves eastward through the north, the Cumberland House and Pelican Narrows areas could be in that kind of 5 to 15 millimeter range. Now, as I mentioned, a few thunderstorms possible. Level 2 out of 4 threat for storms tomorrow in Regina and the southeast. Gusts upwards of 90 kilometers an hour. Some pretty large hail could be possible as well. And around the center of that low pressure, kind of along the Yellowhead corridor, We could also see some funnel clouds or brief weak tornadoes in there as well, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. Winds gusty tomorrow in the 40 to 50 range from the southwest and west, but as that system passes us by on the back side of it, we will really be picking up, especially in southern Saskatchewan on Friday, gusts close to 60 at times. That includes Regina, where temperatures, well, tomorrow, like we saw today, maybe not even getting up into the low 20s, but Friday we'll get some clearing. It'll be windy though. The weekend actually looking not too bad before we warm up on Monday, and then another quick cool down as we head into Tuesday, and possibly some breezy conditions as well. Saskatoon, again, I'm putting you kind of in that 5 to 10 millimeter range. Again, also breezy on Friday with a little bit of cooler temperatures, and then some improvement as we head into the beginning of next week. Cloudy at times with rain showers possible as well. So this system bringing that much needed rain, Natasha, but for those who like the sun, looks like a pretty nice weekend in store.
What a great mix. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
The goats are back, Regina. You can spot them in the storm channel between Pasca Street and 25th Avenue. The goats are being used to get rid of leafy spurge. It's an invasive plant that is harmful to some animals, but safe for goats to eat. The city says it's pleased to pilot a chemical-free solution. Goats have previously turned weeds into lunch at Wascana Park. The city reminds people not to touch the goats while they're on duty. We'll be back after the break.
When it comes to your news, you want up-to-the-minute access. Anytime, anywhere. Get the facts straight from the source. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca for news you can trust.
Hundreds of visitors to a popular Alberta attraction had a longer than expected stay on a mountaintop. They were left stranded for a night when a power failure shut down the famous Sulphur Mountain gondola near Banff. CBC's Carolyn Dunn has the story.
Stranded at the summit of Sulphur Mountain in Banff National Park, an adventure in the Rockies gone wrong. For Carol and Ross Cheneau of California, a hiking trip turned into, well, something else entirely.
Yeah, well, it really reminded me a bit of a refugee camp. People huddled up with these silver blankets around them, and there were about 300 people, all told, so on the 4 different floors.
The gondola up Sulphur Mountain was brought to a standstill by a storm and town-wide power outage Monday night. The popular tourist attraction is about 130 kilometers west of Calgary, near the Banff town site. Its peak is nearly 2,500 meters above sea level. When the power went out, up to 500 people were stranded, some at the top, some trapped inside the gondola cars.
Really, all we could think about initially was, oh, those poor people that are coming up.
We got all the folks who were stuck on the cabins off the cabins. However, we're unable to operate the lift to bring all of the guests and staff at the upper terminal down safely.
Some braved the 5.5 kilometer hike or run down a challenging trail. Others spent the night, about 12 hours, at the visitor center, including this bride and groom who were having wedding photos taken. Some posted their frustrations with what they say was a lack of communication and being fed mainly cookies and candies from the gift shop.
For me, it's not enough. It's not enough help for us to feel like, reassured and safe.
The company says it's proud of its team's safety and hospitality response.
This was a very unprecedented event at the gondola. We have not, in the last 20 years, had a shutdown of this magnitude with that many guests at the top of the mountain.
The remaining guests were safely evacuated by helicopter. Carolyn Dunn, CBC News, Calgary.
A local filmmaker has begun working on a documentary about her famous ancestor, known as the Willow Bunch Giant. Jessie Short wants to tell an intimate story about her great-great-uncle, Edouard Beaupré. He was born in Willow Bunch in 1881 and grew to be 8'3". At the time, he was touted as the world's tallest man and went on tour as a wrestler and circus star. Beaupré died at the age of 23. Even after his death, his body was put on display. In her documentary, Short will explore Beaupré's Métis heritage and her family's memories.
Edward died in 1904, but his body was stolen and went missing, basically, from our family's point of view for over 80 years. We eventually realized his body was in Montreal, and so then my family members here started to fight to have his body repatriated. So that actually happened. It took a number of decades, but it was repatriated in 1990. So we actually didn't have the funeral for him until 1990, and I was at his funeral when I was a kid. But it was just like a kid memory. I didn't really think much about it until I grew up and I started to hear other people's stories. My dad, when he was a kid, they used to go to his grandparents' farms, and so Georgiana was his grandma, so that was Edward's sister, and she had some of his clothes for a while. So when they were kids, you know, him and the other, like his siblings would try and like fit as many kids as they could in the giant coat, like stuff like that, right? So it's kind of like these like nice, warm engagements, I guess, with Edward. And I think it's also really fitting too, because, you know, from what I understand of him, he was a very like kind of soft-spoken individual who really loved kids. To this day, people are still making like books, news pieces, you know, all kinds of things like that. But I don't think anybody from our family has ever done that. So again, it's just like, it's so different than how we talk about him. And I really wanted to share his story in a very like intimate way that also claims him as our family member, you know, that we still talk about and care about to this day.
And Ethan is back with another peek at our forecast.
And wet is a good word to describe the forecast, Natasha. We're looking at some showers possibly moving into Regina by the midnight, but as we head through tomorrow morning, that rain continuing to move into to the Regina area and through portions, at least, of southern Saskatchewan, including the southeast. As we head to the noon hour, you notice those winds are starting to pick up a bit. We should actually get some clearing, but there is a chance of some pop-up showers and thunderstorms come the afternoon. Still a bit breezy as well. Saskatoon, for you, your rain mostly coming overnight tonight. We're looking at those showers beginning around midnight or so, and then just cloudy by the time we get to 8 a.m. By the noon hour, some peaks of sun here and there likely. Winds not actually all that bad, but of course, Natasha, there is also the risk of some funnel clouds or weak tornadoes in that part of the province as well, so we'll be watching out for that too.
Okay, thank you, Ethan.
You bet.
And before we leave you, a beloved frog sculpture that sits just by us at CBC has been restored. The locally famous amphibian is more than half a century old. It was made by the late sculptor Joe Fafard and 10 of his art students, all of whom were women. Over time, the concrete sculpture on College Avenue was damaged by the weather, and the restoration was delayed by budget constraints and the pandemic. Fafard's widow was at the unveiling today, along with one of the women who helped make the frog in 1971.
I'm really happy. I'm really happy that it's, my kids have climbed on it, my grandkids have climbed on it. Lots of people have told me, oh, the frog, you know, so I'm really happy.
Remember, it was made by 10 women, which is really interesting, as a collaborative piece with Joe. And so that in itself, I think, is really meaningful. It's not, Joe never signed his name on this. He always gave credit. And if you look at the plaque, the 10 women's name are on the plaque, and they were as important and as instrumental as Joe was.
The frog is now structurally sound, and yes, you can climb all over it. Well, that's it for us tonight. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/sask. Ethan and I are back at 11. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.